Hi, Dr. Mariah Hinchy here, and you're watching another episode of the Healing Lyme Summit. I'm going to go over with you my 10B protocol for healing Lyme disease. So, this is really one of the few times you're going to hear me say the word protocol because I don't have a one size fits all protocol, but I do have an approach, and that's really what this is. So, these are the 10 Bs or the 10 bases that I think we should address and cover when we are trying to heal from tick-borne diseases. So, really, the bottom line with all of this is that if we don't recover the immune system, we don't have a shot of getting these infections out of the body. So, number one goal, restore proper immune function because it's the immune system that is going to have to hold this infection either in remission, where it is not replicating, or the immune system that's going to have to completely eradicate it from the body. And really, the main thing that we have to do and able to do this is to make the body inhospitable to the infection. So you will hear me say time and time again that Lyme makes the body hospitable. Lyme no longer is the underlying cause. Lyme will cause a multitude of other underlying causes in the body that helps it to not only survive the immune system, but to thrive inside of you. So, this 10B protocol really, the crux of it is to make you inhospitable and recover the immune system. So, quickly, the 10 Bs are background check, band aids, block inflammation, buffer the autonomic nervous system, balance the immune system, build the gut, break down the biofilms, bolster detoxification, bind toxins, and blast the bugs. And yes, kind of in that order. And you'll notice blasting the bugs is last because it is actually the least important step, in my opinion. Okay. So, for background check, what am I talking about? We need to investigate all of the things that are filling up your bucket and causing you to be hospitable to these infections. So, this could include micronutrient deficiencies, dysfunctional digestion and malabsorption, food sensitivities, inflammatory and toxic food intake, prescriptions affecting the nutrient status and or overburdening the detoxification pathways, hormone imbalance, mindset and perception of life and body and illness, causing stress and autonomic nervous system imbalance, mental, emotional, and physical stressors, sleep and circadian rhythm dysregulation, being sedentary, having poor social or support or community networks, having other biotoxins or mold in the environment, chemicals in the environment, being overall toxic from toxins in the food, air, water, etc., and lack of spending time in nature. So we have to do like this full evaluation, this full background check to see what is going on in the body and in your particular situation, like which pieces of the puzzle need to be addressed. Then, if necessary, we need to use band aids. So, if you are in a way that you are barely surviving and your quality of life is terrible and you can barely get to work and back, or you're not even able to work, we need to come in and we need to do some things to get you out of pain or to get you functioning. And so sometimes these might be prescriptions, they might be antidepressants, they might be anti anxiety, they might be pain medications, they might be low dose naltrexone, something like that. But there's also a lot of natural agents like, for example, curcumin, which is anti-inflammatory, or pycnogenol that helps with focus, or magnesium for relaxation, or phosphatidylserine to lower cortisol. There's a boatload of different things. The point being, if you need a Band-Aid, we're going to use them while we are working on getting to all of those other underlying causes, as well as the infections, and we're going to slowly help you to heal them over time. Okay. So the next is inflammation, and this is kind of in three parts. So the first part, there's this inflammatory protein called galactin 3 that drives all of the inflammatory cytokine cascade in the body and really wreaks havoc and causes ongoing immune system dysfunction, amongst other things that you're going to learn about. We can block and lower galactin 3 using pectosol. My favorite is by my company, Lyme Core Botanicals. It's called G3M or galactin 3 modulator, and it is pectosol. So this special type of modified citrus pectin has been modified to a lower molecular weight and gone through an esterification process for enhanced digestive tract absorption. So it actually gets into the body and it's able to have its effects inside of the cells, not just in the GI tract. Okay, so the second piece of inflammation is blocking these inflammatory cytokines. So, Japanese knotweed and Chinese skullcap together are going to inhibit all of the inflammatory cytokines like nuclear factor kappa beta, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, interleukin 1 beta, the MAPKs, tumor necrosis factor alpha, IDO, all of these different inflammatory cytokines. And then the third is to block the inflammatory enzymes that break down collagen, the extracellular matrix, and the endothelial cells. And now these enzymes are really what allows the spirochete Borrelia to move throughout the body and break down the collagen and cause inflammation in our joints and tendons and ligaments. So we can inhibit these enzymes using Japanese knotweed, ashwagandha, and Chinese skullcap. Okay, so then we want to buffer the effects of the autonomic nervous system. We want to get people out of that fight or flight. So we can do this with a host of different nutrients that you can see here. And there are so many different therapies that we can do. Things that will help to restore tone to the vagal nerve. So when you stimulate the vagus nerve, it helps to bring you out of that fight or flight and back into parasympathetic or homeostasis, rest and digest. So we can also do grounding or earthing, massage, acupuncture, visualization, deep breathing. There's so many neural reprogramming techniques that we can do. You can do EMDR. Having a loving, supportive, understanding community, feeling supported, even that alone makes such a huge difference. Okay. We need to balance the immune system. So, balancing the various branches of the immune system, specifically Th1 and Th2. Hands down, ashwagandha is my absolute favorite herb for that. So, building the gut. Gut functioning is so important when you are treating any sort of infection, any sort of disease or disorder in the body. When it comes to tick-borne diseases, if your gut is not functioning properly, I would say the most important piece is that you're not going to properly detox. And if you are not detoxing appropriately, you're going to become more inflamed. You're going to have more oxidative stress. You're going to have more cell damage. And it's going to make your immune system status worse. It's going to make your inflammation worse. It's going to make your body more hospitable. So we have to make sure that you do not have leaky gut. And if you do, we have to address that really before we start killing these organisms. So, in order to restore proper functioning to the gut and to build the gut, we need to make sure that our microbiome is balanced because our microbiome is essential to modulating inflammation and for optimal immune function. Okay. So we need to eliminate food sensitivities and food allergies. We need to eliminate pathogenic bacteria, mold, yeast. We need to balance the opportunistic bacteria and replenish probiotics. We need to use appropriate prebiotics to feed the existing healthy bacteria in the gut. We need to heal the gut lining. We need to replace deficient micronutrients. Sometimes we need to use digestive enzymes. Modified citrus pectin or this pectisol can be very effective at helping to heal the tight junctions and resolve leaky gut. SBIs or serum derived bovine immunoglobulins can be very helpful to help to bind some of the toxins as well as to heal the tight junctions. And then we really need to focus on eating an anti inflammatory and phytonutrient rich diet. Intermittent fasting can be helpful. It is so crucial to get adequate sleep and also to manage our stress. So, again, I cannot say enough about building the gut and the gut's role in detoxification, immune system functioning, and managing inflammation. Okay. So this is just a little schematic here showing you where galactin 3 comes in and drives the inflammation here at the tight junctions, eliciting production of tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6, interleukin 1 beta. And basically, these lipopolysaccharide endotoxins basically going back into the systemic circulation because it's not getting eliminated through the gut. So they're all just recirculating and driving that inflammation and driving that toxicity and oxidative stress. Okay. So we need to break down biofilms. And for those of you that don't know, the biofilms are the forts that these bacteria make to wall themselves off and hide from the immune system. So this is one of the ways that these infections can become persistent because the immune cells aren't able to get to them and kill them, but also a lot of the prescription antibiotics cannot get past the biofilm to kill them either. So that galactin 3, that chemical is responsible for building kind of like the backbone or the lattice of the biofilm. And one of the things obviously we can use is this pectisol or G3M to break down the lattice or that backbone of the biofilm. And then we can use proteolytic enzymes like serrapeptase and nattokinase, which are enzymes that will kind of eat away at the rest of it. And then there are a lot of botanicals themselves that are potent biofilm busters. Okay, we need to bolster detoxification. So, again, the Herxheimer reaction being one of the most obvious things here, if we're not detoxing and we're building that level of LPS or endotoxins from the infection, it's going to cause so much more damage to the body. And it's actually going to make us more hospitable and feed that infection by upregulating the pro inflammatory cytokines and enzymes that help this infection to break down collagen and the extracellular matrix and live. Further, the cytokines are going to break down the tight junctions and increase gut permeability, leading to more food sensitivities and reabsorption of the toxins into systemic circulation. So a lot of this is just very synergistic and not in a good way. Okay, so ways to bolster the detoxification. Obviously, fixing the tight junctions, right? So we need to fix those little areas in between the cells that kind of seal up the gut. Best things to use for that would be G3M, glutamine, butyrate, zinc, polyphenols. We need to correct dysbiosis. So a lot of the goals here are, the same when it comes to the gut as we just talked about in gut function. So prebiotics, probiotics, berberine, other antimicrobials, grapefruit seed extract if we have an overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria or yeast. And then we need to use the various nutrients that are needed to run phase 1 and phase 2 of our body's detoxification systems. So we have to focus on things like NAC, selenium, alpha lipoic acid, cruciferous vegetables, curcumin, sulforaphane that help with glutathione conjugation. Sulforaphane is also helpful with NRF2 induction. We need to look at our methylating nutrients like methylfolate, methyl B12, P5P, choline to support the methylation process. We need to use things like cysteine, methionine, molybdenum for the sulfation pathway, and then B1, B5, and vitamin C for acetylation, and then EPA, DHA, limonene to support glucuronidation. If we have high levels of beta glucuronidase, we can use something called calcium deglucarate, various pre and probiotics to help to get rid of that enzyme to help to detox estrogens from the body. And then we can use binders to bind endotoxins or mycotoxins like chlorella, G3M, bentonite clay, etc. And it's so important not to forget about the routes of elimination. So it's not enough to just support detoxification in the body. We need to make sure that our patients are pooping and peeing and sweating and doing deep breathing exercises because those four things are routes out of the body for these toxins. And we need to make sure we're eliminating the toxins, not just pulling toxins out of cells. And in fact, if we're focused on pulling toxins out of cells and not getting those toxins out of the body, mainly, through our digestive tract, through our colon, through our feces, we are going to become more toxic and therefore more inflamed and therefore sicker, and all the while supporting this infection. Okay. So, with a Herxheimer reaction, we need to focus on binding the toxins. So, when it comes to a Herx, really three things are going on. We have increased toxicity, the actual physical breakdown products of the dying bacteria or yeast. We have acidity, and we have inflammation. So when you are looking to deal with a Herx, we need to tackle those three things. The biggest thing being what starts a Herx, the presence of that LPS. So we need to be able to bind it physically. I love to use G3M, SBIs, and chlorella. Those are my favorite. And then we need to detox it. We need to move it out of the body. So we need to make sure that our tight junctions are sealed up and functioning correctly. We want to coordinate phase one and phase two of the liver, not push one or the other. We need to make sure that we have all of the micronutrients needed for detoxification. And then there are so many different self care techniques that we can do, like far infrared sauna, Epsom salt baths, dry skin brushing, colonics if necessary to help to move the toxins out of the body. And then we really have to focus on alkalinization of the body because it's usually in that very acidic state. So you can grab Alka-Seltzer Gold over the counter. That can be very helpful. But I love chlorella because chlorella is also very, very alkalinizing and it has some binding effects. Minerals in general are alkalinizing, and so are various salts. Then for our anti-inflammatories, my favorite being Japanese knotweed and Chinese skullcap, as well as N-acetylcysteine or NAC is also very inflammatory, and NAC will also help to coordinate phase one and phase two of liver detoxification, as well as support some of the phase two detoxification pathways. Okay. And then finally, blasting the bugs. So we need effective eradication of these infectious organisms, including the persister forms. This is a critical aspect of treatment, obviously, but we can't forget about those persister forms, which antibiotics do not treat. So there are multiple herbal remedies that have shown to have antimicrobial properties and the ability to target persister forms. My favorite being Japanese knotweed, sweet Annie, Andrographis, teasel, petunia, garlic, olive leaf, cat's claw, Chinese skullcap, black walnut, grapefruit seed extract, and of course, cryptolepis. So here are my 7 most used antimicrobials, my favorites: Japanese knotweed, cat's claw, sweet Annie, cryptolepis, black walnut, Chinese skullcap, and petunia. And here are a multitude of studies. Look at all of these showing how these botanical medicines are effective at treating Lyme, and co-infections. And the late Stephen Harold Buhner, a wonderful man who dedicated his life basically to treating tick-borne disease and researching it and writing books on it. His books are a wealth of knowledge. He has 4 different books specifically on healing Lyme and co-infections. I highly recommend all of them. This man taught me most of what I know regarding treating these infections with herbs. Okay, so in summary, I believe that effective resolution of tick-borne diseases requires understanding the infection, how this organism lives inside of our body, how it makes us hospitable, how it hijacks our immune system and thrives inside of us. We need to understand our specific terrain. So, what is going on inside of our body that's making us hospitable? And if it's not us, our loved one or our patient. And then understand the mechanism of action of the various treatments available. So, whether we're talking about pharmaceutical agents or herbs or nutraceuticals, what are they doing inside of the body? Get out of that, like, this is good for this and that is good for that, and just really understand, even on a basic level, what they are doing. And if you understand all of this, then you can put together an intelligent, effective treatment plan utilizing the smallest amount of things that you can use to cover all 10 of these bases. So I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that this really helps you on your journey to healing Lyme disease. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.